Hi, I'm Brock.
And I'm Amy.
And
And we're the Searles.
We adopted our son from Colombia, and his name is Alex.
I was actually at my daughter's gymnastics recital, which is a really funny place to receive such a strong impression. But I saw another family there that had adopted, and I just was like, oh, I love that. I love adoptions. I loved seeing that they had adopted. And when I thought that, all of a sudden I just had this really strong spiritual impression that came into my mind and in my heart, and I just knew that I just had this really strong feeling that we needed to adopt, and I knew it was going to be overseas, and like a memory almost of me talking to this boy, and I knew it was a boy, and I told him that I would go through any obstacle to get to him, and I would cross any ocean to find him. And I was totally stunned afterwards. I started getting teary-eyed like I just did. And I just kind of was like, oh, people are going to think I'm crazy. I'm like crying at a gymnastics recital. Like, it wasn't that emotional. After a month of thinking about it, I decided to talk to Brock to lay it on him. He has 5 kids is a lot.
I mean, it was shocking for sure. Our life was pretty comfortable at that point. We had our kids, things were pretty smooth, and so
we were at the point where you could start going to do things without having a baby. I just kept feeling this urgency in my heart, like, you guys need, you got this, now you need to do something about it. So then it was like, okay, our child is somewhere out in the world, and it's not just any child, it's a specific child. And that's like finding a needle in a haystack. Like, how do you go about finding this child? I found that there's an international adoption agency in Idaho Falls, which is like, what's the odds of that? Because Idaho Falls is pretty small.
I mean, one of the first things you have to do is pick the country you're going to adopt from, because all the paperwork is specific to country. So that was, I mean, you had to pick an agency and pick a country.
And we felt good about that agency, so that was like, okay, now you have 75 countries. That narrowed it down a little bit.
I mean, we were looking at different countries and praying about it, and just researching each of the countries. And then there were a few different things that happened. Amy joined several different online adoption groups, and she ended up having 2 or 3 different people reach out to her specifically to talk to her about their adoptions. Mm-hmm. And every one of them that called and talked to her just randomly had all adopted from Colombia.
I kept it to myself that I had felt like it was a boy, just because I was like, maybe I was wrong about that. And then I'd had this dream that I saw Brock, and he was with 2 boys, and Axel was one of them, and he was a little bit older, but it was just from behind, but one had dark hair, and they were in like this apple orchard. And I just was like, that's my other son.
Once you get to a certain point in your paperwork, you go into the waiting list to receive a referral. And basically, when a child comes up available that matches your criteria, and you're the next person in line to potentially receive a child, that child gets referred to you. And then there's other children that, if they have challenges or things to where they don't meet anyone's whatever willingness, they go into waiting child's lists and availability. But we received a referral for a little boy, and
I remember Brock saying, well, we don't have any reason not to write a letter of intent for him.
And we didn't feel super strongly like
we didn't feel like
this
is your son.
There was no strong reason not to, and so we just decided to proceed and accept that referral. And ultimately, he ended up getting placed with another family. And
I remember thinking, I don't think this was how it was supposed to be. Like, I just remember thinking, like, this child that we're getting I don't think he's gonna have like a bunch of families asking to, because he's supposed to be in our family. And but it was really hard when that didn't work out with that little boy. And I remember talking to this friend that I had made through this adoption group, and I was just pouring my broken heart out to her, and I was like, is this what it's going to be like? Or are we just going to like kind of keep until it happens, and maybe that was God's plan.
The waiting child lists are really hard. Every child on it has major challenges in their lives.
So I was looking through them, and there was this one little boy that I was like, oh my goodness, he's so cute.
I got an email from the account somehow, and I just
I was driving the
and
kids to school when he called me. I
Yeah,
remember exactly where I was at.
I saw his profile, and I just felt like we need to look at this child. I think that he's our son. I mean, they had diagnosed him as fully blind, global delays. He had TBI, or he'd had a traumatic brain injury when he was
as a baby.
Pretty much 7 or 8 months old. He was in the ICU for about a month with seizures, and it was a little daunting and scary, but we just felt like he was the one that was supposed to come into our family.
Because we pretty much knew that if we sent this letter of intent in for him, that he would be ours, just considering the amount of special needs that he was diagnosed with.
Several months after that, we finally get to the point where they'll allow us to do some Zoom calls with him. And I think that first Zoom call was really amazing for us. I mean, to see him for the first time, but also just to see, like, we really at that point did not know what his challenges would be, how high they would be. I mean, the paperwork, like we said, was fully blind, major delays, but it was amazing. The first time we saw him, he was walking around this room, grabbing onto the walls, and just happy and a beautiful little boy. And so that was just amazing to see him, and brought a lot of relief to see that he was progressing and growing and walking and doing well.
In Colombia, they actually overdiagnose kids so that people don't have this idea of what their child's going to be like, and then they're way worse, like more special needs.
They seem to err on the side of
caution.
Overdiagnosing, so there's a surprise.
So Alex wasn't actually fully blind. He's maybe
he has
partially
some vision
blind.
Challenges, but he can see. First time we got to meet him. So we go to the orphanage. They take us to a little waiting room, and we're in there waiting. We have some little cars and gifts for him, and they bring him in, and he's just...
He was so soft.
So perfect. Shaggy
so,
little boy. And
so funny, but I remember his hair was, because they just bathed him, and they put him in the little outfit that we had brought for him, and his little cheeks, I remember he was just so soft, and I could tell, I mean, he was a little nervous, he could tell something was going on, but he just was so cuddly. Remember how cuddly he was? He was so little. I just remember thinking, after all the videos and things we'd seen of him, he was just so much littler than I thought he was going to be.
Crazy experience, like you meet your son for the first time, and I mean, you're trying to interact with him, and he was pretty mellow at first, but then he started to get nervous, and he started crying, and I just felt like, this is my son, I need to take care of him. And I kind of picked him up, and he was screaming, and was able to carry him and walk with him outside and just hold him, and knew that he was our son, and was able to provide that comfort of a father for the first time. And he ended up falling asleep in my arms, and I was able to hold him and carry him as we finished paperwork and carry him out to the car.
It was so cute. Axel was just like, he was giving him a car, and he wanted to play with him, and Alex didn't have a clue what to do with this car. But then, like, we were in there for like 30 minutes in that room, and by the end, they were driving the cars on the glass windows, banging on them, like throwing them together. And I think Axel and Alex were meant to be brothers. And like, ever since then, they are like together nonstop, getting into trouble, like they're just together all the time, and they love each other. And Alex, one thing he was so good at was giving kisses, besos. He would just give us kisses, and just so sweet. The orphanage, they loved him. Like, the ladies that were with him, they like were obsessed with him, which I totally can see why, because he just has the most contagious laugh. They actually did a professional photo shoot of him that they sent us, and our agency worker was like, this doesn't happen, you know? And I cherish those pictures. So Alex is an active toddler, and he is so happy, has the most joyful laugh. And
he just brings light with him wherever he goes, and you can tell is a brave spirit, child of God, and his laugh just lightens everything around him.
And he's progressing. Like, he's been with us how many months? 5 or 6 months now?
About 5 months.
And he, like, the amount of just growth and development he's experienced in that time versus where he was at when we got him, it's amazing. And I know he needs us. We need him. I think we're learning some really good lessons from him being in our family. Just a sweet little guy. We're grateful. We are able to get him the therapy that he needs to thrive and grow. Our family would not be the same without him. Everyone loves him. Everyone's gotten their spot, and he's just part of it. He's part of everything, and he's taught us a lot, and we're learning. Like, even at the park, I've never thought before that there's no like line that says that like prevents kids from falling off. But by having him, I'm now seeing things in a different light, and maybe I can have an impact on the community to help other kids that have vision problems because I have Alex, because I never would have thought about that before. And so I just am grateful that he's opened up our lives in so many ways and really brought compassion to our hearts. So
he's thriving. He's bonded really well to our family. Mm-hmm. We have bonded to him, and we love him. It's like he's always been a part of our family because he always has. And we're learning from him, and he's learning and growing, and we're just very happy to have him here with us. It's a long process, and there's miracles that speed things up, and there's miracles that slow things down. And if anyone else that's going through the adoption process, there's challenging times, but just trust the Lord. It'll work out.
What I would say to someone who's considering adoption is that it's a wild ride, and it's hard, but it is so worth it. And something that has always been big on my heart is that a child that is adopted, or a child that is birthed to you, because we have 2 adopted kids, 3 biological kids, that it is the same. The love that you have for them is the same. And you go through challenges with any of your kids. And it's just like, what is the best path for this child? If you feel like that you need to adopt, that you just go forward in faith, because God's going to lead you to whoever it is that's supposed to be in your family.
The point I would make, God loves all of his children the same, and we have the capacity as well to love the same. Our children, like we've said, have come through birth, have come through adoption, and the love that I have for each of them is just infinite. It's the same love. And I know that anyone out there that's considering adopting, I would just strongly encourage you to move forward with faith. God will guide your steps. He'll guide your path. There are challenges. It's not easy, but he'll be by you, and he'll help you. He'll help you have love in your heart, and he'll bring joy to your life.
I feel like your heart just grows, and you don't have like this much heart that has to be cut into each child, but your heart just expands with each child.